Evening to all our guests and our speakers this evening. My name is Sizwe Ngasana. I am the CEO and the founder of Future Nation Schools, Sifiso EdTech, and Sifiso Learning Group. And it really is a pleasure to welcome you to this very exciting webinar today. As Karen has indicated, today is International Day of Play, which is very, very exciting. A lot of people don't know this. But it is a day which, in fact, particularly the Lego Foundation and Lego has done a lot of work in promoting so that it's recognized today as an international day. And we have a very exciting lineup of speakers today that are going to be talking about the importance of learn through play. And at Future Nation Schools, as you saw in the video, not only do we emphasize learn through play, we integrate it with project-based learning at the same time, because it is about developing the skills and competencies of our young people as they play. We're quite deliberate about how children play. We're deliberate about the kind of outcomes that we'd like to see in terms of not just their cognitive development, but also psychological well-being, how they may even, develop as young leaders in the field of play and so on. And to share all of this, our speakers, and the first speaker is going to be Nompumelelo Dlamini, who is the head of our primary school at Future Nation School at our Flair-Off campus. And Mpumi is very passionate about young children, having studied and acquired an associate degree in science, in psychology, which he did, as well as a national professional diploma in education. And Mpumi started her work life in the US, in United States. And since then, she has done a lot of things, especially that have to do with children. She's worked for various organizations, including Bolton Nursery School in Baltimore in the US. And then she came back here and she worked for Curo before she joined Future Nation Schools. So that is Mpumi Dlamini, who is the head of our primary school at the Flair-Off campus. Let me just introduce the other speakers, but I will cover them in a bit more detail when they are just about to speak. We also have with us Saha Mobiuddin, who's a strategic education advisor in charge of monitoring and evaluation and research at VVOB. So I'll introduce her when she speaks. We also have Chantal Sneyman, who's the project coordinator of Learn Through Play at VVOB. But let me take this opportunity to invite Mpumi, over to you.
Thank you, Bob Sizwe. Good evening, everyone. Like Mr. Masani has said, my name is Nompumelelo Dlamini. I'm the head of primary at Future Nation School, Flair-Off campus. We welcome you to our evening to celebrate the International Day of Play. Today, let's embrace the joy of play and rediscover the magic it brings to our lives. I'll be touching on how our ECD at Future Nation School and PBL and learning through play in the classroom come together. Karen, whenever you are ready, we can move to the next slide. What is learning through play when it comes to us at Future Nation Schools? Learning through play is a process where individuals, typically children, acquire knowledge, skills, and understand by engaging in enjoyable activities and games. It's an informal and natural way of learning that fosters exploration, experimentation, creativity, often without explicit intention of education. So what we do in our classrooms with our students, we make sure that they are not aware of what exactly they are doing. So we integrate subjects like mathematics, life skills, and PBL into our learning. Without them being aware, then we use resources like rubrics in order to assess our little ones as they go through their learning throughout the day. Ma'am Karen? We have put together a video for you just to give you a clue at what exactly happens in our classrooms.
are we doing this week? Put on your thinking head. What do you think? Which sound are we doing this week? Let me choose somebody. Let me choose. Wanga, which sound are we doing this week? Can everybody say Can you say And that's in front of me. What do you see? What do you see, Enche? Little? Sweet. Is that a sweet? Does sweet begin with a L? No. Sweet begins with and we are doing sound. Espacito.
It's a lollipop.
Lollipop. Do you guys love lollipop?
Yeah.
I love it too. And something else? Caleb?
A lion.
Lion. Can we roll like lions? Lion, definitely.
As you have seen in the short video, the students were discovering what is a L sound. And what we do in the classrooms, we don't teach them that you are doing a L. We try to drive them with the material that the students bring and that we bring to the classroom for them to understand the letter that they'll be doing that week. And we try to introduce phonic sounds at an early childhood in ECD. Reason being, when you are trying to write maybe a word for them, let's say you are trying to write lead. When you're writing lead, you're not going to say L because you can't hear that sound. But when you're writing lead, you're going to say L. What the sound that you hear is the L sound. So we make sure we introduce phonic sounds at an early stage of their learning. And what you are watching right now, it's a video of them playing, doing games, building the letter L, and they are working in groups. So what we are trying to achieve here is to integrate again all three subjects: mathematics, life skills, and English. And on top of that, we include our project, which currently our little ones are trying to answer the driving question: how can we create a stimulating classroom? In doing so, they are trying to create a class that can be fun for them. And we allow them to come up with their own ideas on what they can do in the classes. For example, right now, as they are playing the game, there's collaboration, there's discussions, there's memory. They have to memorize what color they are looking for in that container where there's different types of Legos. They are also trying to remember what letter they are trying to build. And they are running, which involves physical education, which is our life skills. And the counting, that how many Legos they are collecting as they are building this letter. They also have to remember the instruction the teacher gave them. But because they are having fun, they are not aware how much knowledge or how much information they are collecting at once, because it's all about them having fun. So in other words, what we are trying to say as Future Nations and in our classroom, we're trying to teach them a lot of skills in a small time, including everything, without them being aware exactly what they are doing. And they learn to sequence, because as they were building the L, they're sequencing the Legos. When they are sequencing the Legos, they are also learning skills for coding, because in foundation phase and preschool, in our grade as they do coding. So as they are doing this, they are also learning the sequencing. There's some African content there. If you notice, when we showed you on the board side, they said different words that start with a L sound. One of the words they wrote there was leto, which the teacher wrote it for them. Leto is not an English word, but it's a Zulu word. However, because they are noticing the letter for them, they realize even though it's in an African language, it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, it does cover the sound they were looking for. And the memory, at the end of the day, they'll remember the letter L any time of the day, because they built it having fun. And also, we also pay attention to the number recognition, because after they were done, if you notice, the teacher was counting the number of Legos they were all able to collect. Then they did some mathematics in there. So when it comes to also our PBL, if you look at the classroom as the camera moved, we had some pictures that we took. The students, as they were answering the question, how can we create a stimulating classroom? They said they want to know how to do nails because they notice what their parents do at home. So they create a space where they are doing, one person is doing the other person's nails. They've created a place where they have to do massaging their feet. They are also doing, they have a corner where they have a camping site where if you are feeling down, if you are feeling stressed, or you're frustrated at that minute, they go there, they call it a safe space. So they go there in that room for about 2 minutes. After that, they come back and join the class. Before they join the class, they go to the teacher and explain how they feel. What are we trying to achieve there? We are trying to achieve that as they grow, they're going to have challenges, but you have to learn to take a few minutes for yourself and breathe in and breathe out before you address a certain issue. This is a skill that they will need as they grow up, as they face so many challenges. Ma'am, if you can move to the next slide, please. So through this activity and what you have seen before, we are focusing mostly on hands-on learning. The hands are the tools of the mind. Through the manipulation of concrete material, the body and the mind are fully engaged. In the learning experience, learning becomes an activity that engages the whole self. If you notice what they were doing, the students, they were involved throughout the beginning and towards the end, until the end of the activity. They wanted to win at the end of the day, and even without winning, they were still happy because they were still able to engage with the teacher. So we're trying to teach them that you can work in groups, and it's important to also memorize and remember what we have done. We also worked on their fine motor skills. When they were collecting those Legos, they are working on their fingers, and at the same time, they're also working on their gross motor skills because they were running. So we achieved so many things with just a little time, but it's all about them having fun throughout the day. Next slide, ma'am. Self-discovery. We drive self-discovery in our environment and encourage children to problem solve for themselves. Children are naturally explorers who enjoy discovering and experiencing the world around them. They are exploring, they enjoy everything they do because most of the solutions that they are doing in the class, they came up with the ideas. Remember, we as adults, we want to decide for the kids on what they must do. However, if we open them to make decisions, they become excited and they feel they are involved and they feel that they are a part of the decision making. Next slide, ma'am. So as in PBL, we are, like I said before, we are focusing on the motor skills in ECD classroom. Arts projects, painting, cutting, pasting, refined hand coordination. For block building enhances hand-eye coordination and finger agility. Sensory bins, sorting out, pouring, improve fine motor skills. So parents, fine motor control. So parents, what we are trying to emphasize into the educators is that it is important, especially at the early childhood stages, that the students work with their fingers a lot. There's a lot of activities that we can do at home, putting flour in a tray, putting rice in a tray, anything. Let them use those fingers, let them bake with you, let them make a sandwich with you, because those skills are really important. When we notice as the kids become older, some of them struggle with pencil grip, especially in the grade 1, grade 2, grade 3 classes. Reason being, their fine motor skills, they are not 100% developed. So such things, some of the activities can be done at home without waiting for a child to go to school to get that opportunity. Next slide, ma'am. Gross motor skills, outdoor activities like running, climbing, enhancing gross motor skills. There's a lot of things that you can do with your child when you're outdoors. Try to, what we are trying to advise also, let's spend less time at home giving our kids gadgets. Let's spend some time outside where they can develop these skills because they are important as part of their growth. Pretend play encourages physical expression through role playing. Games such as beanbag toss, relay races, and yoga promote coordination. Next slide, ma'am. Project-based learning involves parents in their child's education by encouraging them to participate in activities like baking or bringing items for projects. When students work with their parents, they learn hands-on skills and research techniques. For example, practicing making a sandwich at home, when a parent helps students prepare for school projects, strengthening the bond between home and school. Parents, I would like to emphasize mostly on this one, because if you notice also our little ones where the teacher was showing the things that start with the letter, most of those things, they don't come with the teacher, they come with the kids from home. So what we are encouraging is that parents must be involved in their kids' education, because that promotes a big bond, because the child gets excited to say, Mommy, what are we bringing for next week? If they are doing the letter now you start taking parts on what they are doing at school and looking for those material, and that makes them excited and it creates the bond. And also when, for example, the sandwich making, when you are making the sandwich, you are not only teaching your child on how to make the sandwich, but you're also paying attention. You are teaching them how to use a knife. We are having a mini talk with Memlanga earlier on, where I told Memlanga when I grew up, they used to tell us that when you're holding a knife, you must always point it down. Then Memlanga was saying that you better say you hold it up. So such discussions, where did it come from? Is it a myth, or do we really have to hold it a certain way? A kid can hold a knife pointing at another person. If they fall, something may happen. But if we are not giving them the opportunity to use a knife and be taught on what's the right way to use a knife and not, because in such occasions, what's happening with us now, we as parents are so busy and focusing on our work or on our other things, and forget that our kids are staying home with nannies, and the nannies are the only ones who are taking care of the kids. And most of the time, nannies will only would make things for them, but the kids are not getting an opportunity to have real life opportunities to explore and touch and enjoy other things and explore. So our duty as parents is to teach them the skills, but in a safe environment. Create the safety, let them touch, let them use, let them turn on the stove, let them help you make the eggs. Just those many things creates the bond and also teaches them responsibility and to be careful. There was one video that I watched once where it's a USA video where the mom fainted. And when the mom fainted, the child was 3 years old and she was able to dial 911. With that child dialing 911, that child was able to save her mom. So the whole point was, how did the child know how to dial 911? It wasn't magical. It didn't come out of nowhere. The parent did teach the child. Why are we not teaching our kids such things? Because they play a huge role. You will never know when your child needs to use such. So let's please embrace them. Be open. Let's not try to keep them safe all the time. Let's let them explore and see what's happening around them. Going shopping, have them take part. There's many trolleys that are there now at the shopping in the grocery stores. Have your little one push her trolley and you push yours. Let them compare the prices with you. Let them choose the snack they want to buy. Because at the end of the day, we buy food that we think they need, but most of the time the kids will come with a lunchbox and they haven't eaten it. Why do they come home with the food that they haven't eaten? Because they are not given the opportunity to make their own decision. And decision making starts at early childhood. Then the kids grow with those skills and that mindset to say, I can make my own decision. It doesn't start out of nowhere. We have to create that opportunity. Ma'am? Then in closing for me, the benefits of you as a parent getting involved, you are involved in your child's development milestone, because playing develops your child's social skills, emotional, physical, and cognitive skills. The bond that you get with your child starts there. The strong bonds start at early childhood. The open communication, the challenges that your child will face later on, it starts now where you are opening the communication, where your child can come to you anytime when they are having problems. Through play, you stimulate your child's creativity and imagination, which is crucial for the skills for innovation in adulthood. So when it comes to playing, provide safe space for your child to explore and express their emotions. Thank you so much. I would like to hand over back to Babsizo.
No, thank you very much, Ma'am, for that really illuminate presentation. I'm now going to hand over to Sahar Mohiuddin, who's the Strategic Education Advisor for Monitoring, Evaluation and Research at VVOB. Sahar has worked for more than 10 years, particularly in UN agencies such as UNAIDS, UNFPA, UNICEF, as well as for institutions such as the British Council, SNV. And she's currently doing her PhD in education and has 2 master's degrees, and has a lot of experience in monitoring and evaluation and research. So I'm going to hand over to you, Sahar.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good evening, colleagues, parents. I think, thank you for the kind introduction. So I am Sahar. I am currently Strategic Education Advisor for Research Monitoring and Evaluation at VVOB. And I think just a brief outline in terms of who we are. So VVOB is an international NGO that provides technical assistance to ministries of education, primarily through capacitation and of the education actors. And in this way, what we really do facilitate and take pride in is the knowledge exchanges between research, the experiences of our partners, the leveraging the expertise within the network of partners, and really working in a very collaborative manner to achieve SDG 4. So this presentation, or rather my part of the presentation, my colleague Chantal Snyman will speak to one of our projects that's where learning through play as a pedagogy is embedded in the intervention, is really the first part focusing on how learning through play as a pedagogy meaning a way of teaching, how that develops the child in a holistic way. The previous presenter really did a fantastic job to link a lot of learning outcomes with playful activities. And so this part is just really looking at how research has provided robust evidence on the profound impact that learning through play has, and where learning through play has been embedded in an early childhood development program in a way that contributes to learning outcomes and milestones. We see that the learners, as they progress into grade R, they are the more stronger learners. So in South Africa, we have 2 curriculums that guide our 0 to 6 group. So from birth to 4, we have the National Curriculum Framework. And the focus of this framework is really on 6 key early learning and developmental areas, these being well-being, identity and belonging, communication, exploring mathematics, creativity, knowledge and understanding of the world. So these are sort of the foundational blocks of learning, and this is where a lot of the holistic or the whole child development aspect comes in. And these are the bedrocks of what CAPS then, and as in progress to grade R, this is the foundation upon which grade R starts working at. So it's quite important that the 0 to 4 years is very much at the forefront of parents, and all the singing and playing and expressions and exposure to activities, all of this builds up and accumulates a stock of knowledge of the world of a learner, and this is what the learner then uses as his or her foundation to then build additional knowledge about the world. And CAPS then comes on, and especially relevant from grade R onwards, that really then builds on the foundations of the skills that are developed and the competencies that are developed in ECD. So CAPS really looks at problem solving and critical thinking, creative thinking. It strives to really build this in learners. And we heard from also the previous presentation how teamwork and collaboration is fostered through by learning through play as a pedagogy. And what we see there is that it becomes an increasingly important skill as you progress in the grades, but then also importantly as you transition into the workplace. There's also an emphasis on evaluative thinking, and this really is tied to the problem solving and critical thinking, where nothing is taken at face value. There's a critical interrogation of processes, systems, information that a learner is able to discern from and to make meaning from to really inform their worldview. We also in the CAPS, there's a lot of emphasis on communication using symbolic or language skills, and then the emphasis on language and literacy and reading and comprehension becomes quite important. But all of this already starts at a very, very young age. Already, you'll see communication, lots of symbolic cues already beginning with infants from 3-4 months, and it develops as they get older. There's quite an emphasis on science and technology. I mean, we are in a very technical world. Science and STEM or STEAM has become quite prominent, especially towards our digital economies. And again, and just to link to the previous presentation, there was mention around coding and robotics. And so again, starting and the beginning thinking of coding and robotics starts off with identifying patterns. And one great way of identifying patterns is, for example, puzzles. So there's quite a strong link between learning through play and learning outcomes, and how then they together over time compound and enable a learner to be able to really interrogate any domain of a subject area with confidence. There's also quite an emphasis on responsibility towards the environment and the health of others, and understanding the systems thinking and problem solving in real world context. I think I want to emphasize this because when we look at climate and climate change activities, there is a huge consideration around how do we impact the people in our world and our planet, and how do we problem solve to be able to support and move our communities, our schools towards an environmentally safe space. And again, these are together, when all these skills are taken together, really rely on a robust foundation. And where this foundation is strong, research has demonstrated that learner outcomes are improved. So learning through play, what does it really do? So it really triggers aspects of the mind, the body, and the emotional state in several different dimensions. So we stimulate the health, the imagination, the social emotional competencies, the language skills, and the physical capacities. So it's not just play in the traditional sense we understand, where we just let the children go and explore the world, which is a form of learning in itself. But there are different scaffolding or different layers or different ways in which play can be tweaked to be more or less guided, more or less structured, with each step of scaffolding building a particular skill or competency to achieve a particular learning outcome. So what are these different types of domains of skills that learning through play really fosters, that enables the holistic development of the child? So we have the cognitive skills. This is where we really try in learning through play to strengthen concentration, problem solving, really stretching the mind to think differently about the world. This skill not only applies to children. This is what I consider still a hard skill, through the technical competencies that a person is able to demonstrate when they transition into the workplace. A lot of the for instance, IT spaces, STEM spaces, engineering spaces, medical spaces require the reflexivity and the ability to be able to problem solve and concentrate and to really apply the mind in different ways to come towards a solution. And what learning through play does is that it provides a problem, but also multiple ways in which a problem can be solved from a very young age. So if, for instance, a learner is doing a puzzle, then they're able to really sit and think about how do I put this together. But it's not just about how do I put it together. It's also what are the patterns? How do I join the different pieces of that puzzle? How do I control my emotions if I'm frustrated and my puzzle's not working out? Do I throw a tantrum and give up? Or do I try again and learn to calm down and learn to control my emotions and start again? So these are very important skills that children learn from a very young age. And where this type of regulation and this type of exposure doesn't happen, then you do see younger learners, especially in grade, are really struggling to be able to do very small and easy types of problem solving activities. When it comes to emotional skills, again, here it's really that self awareness and handling of impulses. For those of us who have children, we're aware that impulses are very strong. Beginning from two onwards, children are really discovering themselves. Their ego is developing, their personalities are developing, and they have to build a self awareness and how to handle themselves, because again, this is a life skill. It doesn't just end as a child. People who aren't able, or children who don't know how to emotionally regulate, then also are more likely to develop a lack of ability to really introspect and regulate themselves as adults. So again, it really starts at a young age. The physical activities, here we're really talking about the gross motor skills. For any of us who have had the opportunity of sending children for assessments before they're accepted to schools, one of the tests or the sort of assessments they do on the children is how do they do things such as balancing, hopping, jumping, skipping, and so on. So these physical skills are also quite important because, again, in the later years, they become prevalent in terms of how long they can write, whether they can hold a pen or a pencil, um, whether they have spatial understanding. And sometimes you see that the learners who are not taught how to cut paper, as early as 3 or 4 or 5, who are not given a pencil or a crayon to trace or draw, or use their fingers and move their wrists and the hands around to draw shapes in sand or with Play-Doh and so on. They really do struggle to write. And this becomes very difficult to address when children are in grade 1. And often there are teachers who then have to struggle and give extra attention to these types of learners. But if that teacher is in a context where she has 50 learners in a class and 40 of them have learning barriers, she's unable to give attention to those children as much as they would need. And so again, the best thing a parent can really do is invest in the early childhood development of their child in developing cognitive, emotional, and physical skills. We also have the social skills that learning through play fosters. So especially in games, the children really learn how to interact with each other and to respect what we call boundaries. Boundaries enable learners and children to understand that there's a form and manner in which social interaction takes place. Again, this is extended into real world context. So where good social skills are developed at a young age, we see that the learners are better able to transition and navigate the later grades. We also see the creativity in young learners really flourish when they are participating in imaginary, fantasy, or dramatic play. And where these creative skills are fostered, where learners have the opportunity at home to really come up with a story, or ask questions about an event, or pretend that they visited a country. What did they see there? What did they want to see? All of this offers a child's it offers a child an opportunity to learn about the world, to imagine a world from his or her perspective, and really fosters that imagination and creativity that you really do need, again, when you transition across grades, but then also into the professional career space. So learning through play really has immense benefits, but again, it's about how it's done and what type of resources are used to enable the achievement of learning outcomes through playful pedagogy. So, play based learning in early childhood enables the development of new ideas and experiences about the world. And it also develops a strong foundation on which later formal teaching of reading, writing, and mathematics can be built upon. Learning through play also provides children to opportunities to enjoy participating in their own learning. And I think this is really, really important. Children learn in different ways. Some children can't sit still for 5 minutes, others can. Some cannot understand and link concepts very well. But when a concept is translated or modeled, and they then participate in that modeling and in that translating of practice, they end up learning a lot more. So here we just have this continuum of playful learning. We have child-led play, which is really the free play where you let your child just go and do anything. They can grab their toys, they can grab their crayons, they can run outside. So really that's what we call free play. But then we have guided play where we scaffold the play a little bit so that it's more fine-tuned towards achieving a particular learning outcome, and then you move towards sort of a high-touch scaffolding, and then you move towards a direct instruction where now the teacher is really taking ownership of the lesson, but using play as a way of fostering the learning. So in one of the pictures we saw from the previous presentation, there are worksheets, but then, and so the teacher is teaching a number concept. So it's a concept of 5, but a child may know what 5 looks like, but not understand that 5 means 5 items of something. And so that conceptual understanding is then strengthened by putting the Play-Doh in the number 5 and then trying to reinforce that by putting the little Play-Dohs in those little dots so that you have 5 little dots as well. So we call that direct instruction, but it's using a playful approach to reinforce the learning. And when you reinforce learning in different ways, using different resources and different methods, what you end up doing is really enabling a learner to tackle and understand a concept from multiple dimensions. And then this really leads to deep understanding of a concept. So how does learning through play foster literacy and numeracy? So I've just given you an example in terms of the 5 and how we translated conceptual understanding in different ways, and just to reinforce that conceptual understanding of a number, but also language acquisition. So through storytelling, through songs, through classroom routines, the teacher and the learners are transmitting knowledge. They're communicating, and in communication, they are learning. So we call that teacher-learner interactions. And where there is a lot of that interaction and where learners have a lot of opportunity to contribute to discussions and to asking questions and to taking stories in different directions, we're stimulating the acquisition of vocabulary, we're stimulating the acquisition of the linkages of prior knowledge with the current context in which the learning is taking place. And we also link it to routines. So learners then are familiar as well. When we say shh and with the finger on the lips, all the learners know that that means be quiet. So there's a lot of development that happens very subconsciously through learning through play pedagogy. We also have the development of imagination and creativity. So where learners are asked to imagine a different ending to a story, or to imagine what type of dinosaur they would be if they were a dinosaur. What we end up really doing is stimulating their imagination. And in stimulating imagination, you also develop a vocabulary, because maybe there's a learner in the class who doesn't know what a dinosaur is, and now another learner has learned just incidentally that a dinosaur once existed, and then you go into a history of dinosaurs, and then the next time you ask the learners, tell me about a story of a dinosaur, and so they would link their prior knowledge. So we had a lesson last week about the concept of a dinosaur. This week, we're going to have a story of a dinosaur. And so in this way, you're linking and creating that imaginative and creative space and really stimulating thought, which is, again, quite an important skill throughout a learner's life. Again, games and play fosters emotional regulation. So where you play, for instance, snakes and ladders, that's a game, but you're collaborating. It's a game that also uses numbers because you have to count the number of moves you're going to make on the dice that's thrown. And so games really develop both numeracy and literacy. And what is fascinating about games is that there is such an intensive negotiation between social skills and the cognitive aspects of the numeracy that comes in. And it's a very beautiful way in bringing them both together. So play also fosters cognitive development through critical thinking and problem solving for numeracy and meaning making or comprehension in language literacy acquisition, as well as emergent reading. So I think we've covered enough examples for this to be clear, but I think key takeaways here is that learning through play, when done well with the right resources, can really, really stimulate an exceptional amount of learning and development in a child. So that brings me to the end of my presentation. I'm going to now hand over to my colleague Chantal, who's going to walk you through one of our projects that are being implemented in KwaZulu-Natal. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll quickly just introduce Chantal Snyman, who's a project coordinator learning through play at VVOB. And Chantal has had many years of experience in project management, and she's played different roles. And, she was also a project coordinator for Funda Udlale Nati, or otherwise called FUN. And she's also worked for a number of organizations, but particularly in this area of project management, focusing on children in various aspects and so on. So over to you, Chantal.
Hello, I realized I was chatting while I was muted. I hope you can all hear me now. I am very, very happy to be here with all of you. I really enjoyed the previous presentations, Mam Pumes and also my colleague Sahar, and I'm going to try to build on those presentations to share more about learning through play, and particularly through the lens of this project that VVOB is leading called Funda Udlale Nati. If you look at the bottom of my first slide, you will see that this is a project that involves many partners: the DBE, the Department of Basic Education, the South African Council of Educators, SACE, the KZN DOE, the KwaZulu-Natal Department of Education, Ntata Yise, who is a network of CSOs. We often talk in acronyms, so I'm going to remind myself that, yes, that there may be someone in the audience that, like me, once upon a time, does not know what a CSO stands for. And a CSO is a civil society organization that is focused in ECD training and capacity development. This is the Ntata Yise network that I'm referencing. We've got a learning partner, Neil Butcher and Associates, and you can see them with a bright kind of sun or star logo at the bottom there, and their acronym is NBA. And then this project has been sponsored by the Lego Foundation, who, as we mentioned early on, has globally invested a lot of funding in developing and promoting play as the learning pathway. And FUN is just one of those projects. And in this picture on this first slide, what you can see is the experts at play. If you want to know who the experts are when it comes to play, they are our children. They could also be the children within each one of us. If we submit and we allow ourselves to reconnect with our memories of play, how powerful play was in our lives, with the memories of those adults who played with us, our parents, our grandparents, our uncles and aunts, our neighbors, our teachers, in instances where those of us were lucky enough to have teachers who were connected with the children within. So if you just bear with me, I'm having a little difficulty moving my slides. The hack that Corin introduced me to did not work immediately. I think I've got the hang of it now. Okay, so the Funda Udlalenati project is a project that focuses on strengthening the professionalization of ECD practitioners and teachers through capacity development, specifically in learning through play approaches and methodologies. And here we're talking about grade R and grade RR. So roughly children from the ages of 3 to 6 are the focus, well, practitioners and teachers of children from the ages of 3 to 6 are the focus of this particular project. Why? Why this project? Because we want to be amongst those who are doing the very important work of aligning the ECD experience with the stages, the natural stages of development of children. We want to ensure that their ECD experience supports their curiosity and promotes their well-being, because we know, as both Mampume and Sahar have spoken about, this is what will create the leaders of the future. Children who can think for themselves, children who can lead themselves and are not dependent on others, children who ask questions. There's a statement that lies at the heart of this project on the screen at the moment. The holistic development of young children leads to improved learning outcomes, improved social and emotional well-being, and healthy relationships with others. Central to their holistic development is a learning through play approach, which depends on well-capacitated practitioners and teachers supported by center managers, school leaders, district specialists, and emboldened parents and caregivers. So that is a circle. Mampume spoke about partnership between teachers and parents. I like to think of it as a circle of support, of care, of nurturing, of curiosity, and at the very center are our children. How is the Funda Udlalenati project doing this? We are testing out this year. This is our pilot year, and we are piloting in KZN. We've also got 2 scale-up phases that will follow the pilot, but I'll come back and I'll focus on where we are now. Where we are now is testing out 2 modalities in 6 districts in KZN. The 2 modalities focus on the development of resources. We know that this is something that very often practitioners and teachers need. So we've developed these online courses. They sit on a learning management system, and they are open educational resources. That means that they are free, in essence. You do, however, need data to connect onto the LMS to be able to take up these courses and complete them. There are 2 courses at the moment, a course for ECD leaders, be they center or school-based, and then a basic learning through play course for ECD practitioners and teachers of grade RR and grade R. Part of the models is the bullet point that you see, which says professional learning communities, or PLCs, and professional learning communities are teacher-led groups where teachers and practitioners can come to try out solutions to challenges that they are having in their practice, in their professional practice, in their classroom. There are psychosocial spaces as well where they can share, you know what, this is what I've come across in my class today, or this is what I'm really struggling with. Is anybody else struggling with this? How can we learn together? What strategies can we develop together to overcome or to do things differently, to do things better? So there's an emphasis on sustainability if you think about these models that we are testing out. One, the online resources, the courses, they don't require teachers and practitioners to travel into a center or a space. They are not book-based. These are courses that they can access through their phones or their tablets or their personal laptops. And with the professional learning communities, there is a face-to-face component. It's something that's encouraged. The teachers do get together. However, what we're also seeing is that where teachers are based far apart, what they're doing is they're innovating, as we all do, and they're using platforms like WhatsApp to connect with each other, to share resources, to share problems, and be curious about those problems together. Both the courses that I referenced have got golden threads running through them. If you look at the wonderful circles with the person bouncing off of them, they contain the characteristics of play. And there is joyful, socially interactive, actively engaging, meaningful, iterative. And if I can take you back to the video that Mampume shared, you will see that most of these characteristics were captured in that video. The children were actively engaged. They were running from point A to point B. They were placing things in different places. They were exploring L, complete focus on that letter. It was socially interactive. They were doing it together. It was joyful. There was a lot of smiles, a lot of giggles. Their bodies were showing that they were having fun. It was meaningful for them. They were exploring. They were discovering. They were learning something new. And it was iterative, meaning they were building on process. I think of what Mpumi said with the sequencing of the Legos, which definitely spoke to me about it being iterative. Embedded in the course, these golden threads include inclusivity, and I've already seen some questions pop up in the chat around different abilities, tips for parents. This is the leading the way in learning through play. This is an unpacking of the modules that are part of that course that was developed for ECD leaders. There's an orientation module. There is a learning through play. What is it and how does it help? Then there is a leading your team, growing professionally and leading with values, something that's very important, a value-based approach to education, to development. 4, resources for learning through play, materials, places, and information. 5, learning through play, parents, other caregivers, and the wider community. How to connect with parents and caregivers in the wider community. How to talk about play and its significance and its value, and how to encourage parents and caregivers in the wider community to get involved in supporting play as the learning pathway. It's the natural pathway for children. If you observe a child anywhere, whether it be a doctor's waiting room, a supermarket, that child will engage with their environment in a playful way. They don't need things to play. They can construct whole worlds from their imagination, literally, and from their will and their desire to play, to explore, to be curious. This is something that whether we are teachers or practitioners or school leaders or business people, parents, caregivers, this is something that we can all think about. How can I get behind supporting that? How can I support so that a child can lead the way by being able to play? And then there is a module on being a responsible leader. And I think that's a very, very important module because it really is, again, about coming back to those values of accountability, responsibility. And if you think about it, if you think about how society, there are levels of mirroring in society. If our children are being a part of an educational environment where the leaders are leading in responsible, accountable, loving, nurturing, inclusive ways, this is something that our children will learn right from those foundations. For the practitioners and the teachers, we have a more iterative process. We have 4 phases, although it's one basic course. And this is to give those practitioners and teachers an opportunity to really approach the course through self-study. So to determine how they study, when they study, how much time they spend on each particular module, and the activities that are embedded within, which they can take up and into their classroom practice, and the tips for parents and caregivers, which encourages the practitioners to connect with the parents and caregivers through those tips. And so there is a module on what is learning through play, how do you facilitate learning through play, the role of social and emotional learning in play, observation and assessment in learning through play, very important, because we are dealing with a stage of development where we do not want to encourage as is very often the way, and often the way because there is a lack of knowing differently. There is a lack of being critical about professional practice. How do you assess stages of development at those very tender ages? Observation is a big part of that, and knowing what are the natural stages of development, knowing when to pause and think, maybe something's not quite aligned here for this particular child, but I know this because I've been observing, I'm present, and actually maybe I'm recording in a notebook, maybe I'm recording somewhere, this is what I've noticed about this particular child. And then I'm also thinking about strategies for how can I support, how can I change my classroom or my practice to support with what may be missing in terms of the natural stages of development. We've got in the phase 3, the environment for learning through play, and in relation to classrooms, be they center-based or schools, that looks at the internal environment. So inside that class or center, how is the environment set up so that it really supports play and encourages play and encourages curiosity and encourages the development of those critical skills, which we know is core to leadership, because we are facing a future where, we don't know. The future has always been uncertain, but many of us have followed well-patterned pathways. I want to be a lawyer. I'm going to be a doctor. Now, if we think about the future, we think, you know what? There may be jobs or professions that we do not even know yet that humanity or the world needs. This is the kind of future that the children of today are facing. We know there's things like there's cataclysmic changes like climate change, for example, that may require different types of skills, different types of approaches. And so is the environment, the learning environment that is being set up both in that classroom and also outdoors, is it something that supports with the development of those curious and critical and resilient skills that are going to equip our children to take them into a future with a little more certainty and with the agility that will be needed for problem solving and also for leadership. And while I'm on that point, I want you to think about, because I know that many in the audience tonight are parents, I want you to think about your home. How is that set up so that it also encourages and supports play, whether it be free, guided, facilitated? I'm gonna plant that seed with you now. Then there is a module on resources for learning through play, and that really looks at what do you need? What do you need to support your children in play? It can run the gamut of, you can tell yourself, you know what, I need really fancy toys. Nothing wrong with that. If that's where you are so inclined, but actually you need very little. Cardboard boxes are things that can be used to construct mazes. They can be used to construct, from children's imagination, any range of vehicles, from a spaceship to a car to a boat to maybe even a vehicle that we have not yet thought of. Recyclables are things that are naturally occurring both in the home and that can also be shared with schools. So I'm thinking there of that partnership between home and community and school and center. But these are also things that you can find uses for. We all have that recycling bin where we're like, oh, I'm recycling. I care about the future, which we do. I care about the planet. I care about not sending things to the dump that I know are just going to end up in the landfill. But very often we could find practical, playful purposes for those empty milk cartons, planting seeds, growing our own vegetables, growing our own herbs together, making musical instruments. I'm getting a bit ahead of myself because the very next module is the parental involvement in learning through play. And there's an emphasis on really encouraging schools, the leadership, the teachers and practitioners, how to start conversations with parents and caregivers about how potent play is. That play is the learning pathway. That when you see your children playing, you do not have to get nervous about the fact that they are not learning, because they are. They are learning intensively in ways that we sometimes cannot compute. And it's again that iterative process. Very often the outcomes of what children learn through the process of play is something that we see much further down the line. And both Mpumi and Sahar have hinted at that. There are practical classroom activities embedded in each module. In module 2, there is matching puzzles, there's storytelling, there's emotion, charades, there's practical activities on how to observe children at play, practical guidance for how to observe children at play. There's the obstacle course, something you can build both indoors and outdoors. You think of your dining room tables, you can throw a sheet over them, you can use cardboard boxes, you can use chairs as things to maneuver over and under. Making musical instruments, I've hinted at that. That's something that I think as children, it's something that we probably will discover or have discovered on our own many times without the support or intervention of adults. But if it happens through the interaction with our parents, with our teachers and practitioners, what it does is it makes us feel good. It's a bonding experience, and it's an experience that also is about continuity, singing songs, teaching rhymes, making shakers, things that perhaps our parents or our grandparents or our caretakers did with us. And then it triggers a memory. Oh, I'd forgotten about this rhyme. Let me share this with my children. Then you are sharing a part of yourself. That authentic sharing is such a deep connector. That I don't need to put any more words to that. And then in module 8, there is the parent, there is an invitation for schools, for practitioners and teachers to invite parents to a workshop, a play workshop, where they can really experience the value of play, the importance of play, the potency of play together with their children. So sometimes parents might be feeling, yes, I want to play, but I don't have the time, or maybe I'm feeling like I'm lacking the ideas. These are ways that we can connect that circle of care and nurturing and curiosity, school and home and community, through a play workshop. I'm not sure how my time is, but since I haven't heard anything, I am going to continue. What we've done as a part of the resources that we've developed, I've got an amazing colleague that I work with called Vanessa. I don't know whether she's on today, but this is a shout out to her. And Vanessa, along with some of the other team members, have distilled key messages that talk to each module. But when you look at them, they actually really are universal messages that could talk to parents and caregivers or anybody who's interested in learning about play. So this particular one says teachers observe the children and get to know them, what they like and how they behave, and respond to their playful learning. They understand how the children learn and are aware of each child's developmental level and needs. I mean, teachers there could easily be replaced by parents. Parents observe the children. That is one way to get to know where your child is in their developmental process. They will show you. They will also show you what they are ready to learn when they start trying to, they've come back from Mampume, L for love, they will come to you and say, I know L is for love, and can you help me? Can you help me with the rest of the letters? Children will prompt you. They will let you know when they are ready, if you are paying attention. I see you. What are you saying? 5 minutes. Corin? I think you're saying
3.
5.
Sorry, Chantal.
3. Okay, then I'm gonna move because I know that this presentation will be shared. So there are a couple of key messages. I think play as a powerful tool has really been captured. Teachers play an important role. I would like to transplant parents play an important role as facilitators, observers, and supporters of play and play-based learning. Social and emotional learning has been spoken to. Learning environments, remember the seed I planted about how is your home set up? How is your car set up? Is your car set up to encourage and stimulate play? Can you tell stories on the way to school in the morning, on the way to the ECD center, on the way back, the story of what your day was like? Are there puzzles in your car? Teachers can incorporate different kinds of resources that we've spoken of. There's no cost to play. That's all about looking at what you have in your immediate environment, and that goes both for practitioners and teachers, and it also applies to parents and caregivers. What do you have around you that you can turn into an opportunity for play or something that is a prop for play? This is one of my favorites, and I'm glad that I think it's the last one in the 7 messages. Play has no gender. All of us can play where we are with what we have and together. Families that play together grow together and come in many different shapes and arrangements. Playful parents foster critical thinkers and future leaders. And I just want to leave you with this image. A friend of mine on LinkedIn, Molly, shared 2 images juxtaposed. One was her mom as a 4-year-old playing doctor with a stethoscope, and the other image was her mom as a professional doctor. So when children play, they dream, and those dreams become a reality. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chantal. Really appreciate it. And thanks to you, to Sahar, to Mampumi, for a very, very illuminating set of presentations. We've learned a lot. There are a couple of questions in the chat. I'll combine some of them. There are questions that deal with inclusivity. When you look at learn through play, and I'm posing these questions to anyone of the 3 speakers. We have children that may be physically challenged or maybe disabled. We have children that may have gone through trauma, as an example, and other kind of conditions. And the question is, how can learn through play make sure that those children are included? In other words, how do we design learning spaces or programs that accommodate and, in fact, support children that may have gone through traumatic experiences, that may be physically challenged or disabled, or that may have other conditions? 3 speakers.
I can try with perhaps the questions around inclusivity. So I think, this is where a very skillful teacher comes in terms of the strategies that she employs to reach learners. So I'll give you an example just from my doctoral thesis, where I interviewed one of the foundation phase teachers who had a significant number of children with learning barriers. And she said that she never introduces a lesson to the whole class. What she does is that she gets all her learners and they play a game. And that game is usually geared towards a particular concept that they would later cover in the class. And she said with her weakest learners, if she started a class with this is the concept we're going to do today, her weakest learners would shut down and not participate in the lesson. And so what she would do is would start off with a game that everybody could participate in. So I think, it really comes up to how creative you are in being inclusive and to really think around the strategies you can make or do to be inclusive. So I did note that one of the questions, said, how do you deal with introverts? With the Montessori type of approach, what they do is that they group differently aged learners together. And often that does have some positive benefits where you see a much older child who's incredibly compassionate and patient, who really is able to draw an introvert out of their shell and to play a game with them, which then fosters trust, it fosters collaboration, and in the introvert, confidence. So it really is, and I say it comes down to the creativity and the innovation of the teacher. And there are lots of resources online that can really enable you to think out, of out of the box strategies that can really support you. In terms of trauma, and I mean, this is quite a relevant question. A lot of children do come from very traumatic homes, homes where there's violence or substance abuse or absent parents, neglect, or even war and displacement. So learning through play becomes really important in addressing trauma through communication, and really sometimes through speaking about feelings and emotions and what else can be done, and linking sometimes an ideal world or bridging the ideal world with where the learner is at in very creative and subtle ways does help a child to really come out of their shell. And again, that's where it really comes to the strategies that one employs and really meeting a child where they're at. So for example, if it's a traumatic incident, sometimes you can have give a child a giraffe and you're a lion, and you tell the child who has the giraffe, you can do anything to this lion, what would you do? And where then you note, is he compassionate, is he aggressive? And if it's aggression, then you start exploring, why did you do that? What led you to believe that the lion was going to hurt you, and so on and so forth? And you really explore the emotional state of a child that's experienced trauma and try and slowly then build trust and confidence in the child, and just scaffold that process. It's something that does take time, but there are incredibly wonderful powers associated with play, also for trauma, traumatic. So, so thank you. That's I hope I've answered some of those questions.
No, thanks so much, Asad. Thanks a lot. A question which refers to, we sometimes grow in a culture, or children grow in a culture where there's carrot and sticks. In other words, parents sometimes, or even educators, for that matter, only use incentives and things like that. And the question is, how do you transfer the locus of control to children, especially when it comes to learning, using maybe learn through play or project-based learning as an example? So I'll pose this question to Chantal.
But I didn't think you were going to pose it to her. I wanted to actually touch on what I thought was a great example of that, when in your Future Nation schools, when Mpumi said, what the children were asked, what are they interested in? What do they want to learn? I think that is a starting place for, locating that locus of control, really, and developing future leaders is really encouraging our children to follow their own interests. It does take agility, and I think, both Soha and Pumi alluded to it. It takes a kind of mindset and a kind of approach, you know, a facilitator's approach, I think, a lot of the time, as opposed to, you know, a traditional pedagogical or teaching approach. And I'm not going to say too much about that, because I'm not saying one is better than the other, but I'm thinking about, you know, when children are seen and heard and encouraged actually to show who they are. Even that, for me, that touches on the question that also spoke about, you know, categories that we have, that we very comfortably ascribe to people, like so-and-so is an introvert, so-and-so is an extrovert. I think, to me, talk more about process. Some people, and where I'm using that term inclusively, so I'm including children as people, because that is how I think of them, come to processes in a different way than others. Some have a very natural inclination to engage in ways that are, you know, externally visible. Others have quite a rich internal landscape. And so it's about paying attention, and it's really about not having a value-based judgment kind of spectrum or scale, but really observing, and through observation, responding in ways that support the children collectively, and then children quite specifically. But I would also be very interested in Pumi's response.
Yeah. Pumi, do you want to come in?
I think Pumi's struggling to log in, but me being a high school teacher, I'm learning a lot from them. If you noticed, even though it wasn't shown clearly in the video, at their level, there's always this corner that they call the, I've forgotten, regroup corner. So in that regroup corner, I've noticed students would go in there. Like on Friday last week, I found one student in there, and the other students were not even bothered why she was there. And when she came out, she went back to the teacher. I'm feeling better now that I've relaxed for a few hours. But that allows them to talk. That allows them to share their feelings without feeling guilty, and without anyone laughing at them or anyone asking, why do you feel the way you do? And that practice on its own has been created by students, where they said, we want that regroup corner. I've forgotten the name, but I call it a regroup corner for us to make our class very stimulating. So that concept of making my class stimulating, it's a great idea for them to move away. If they come from an environment where, you know, la, 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 if you don't la, 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 they come to a quiet, humble environment where their views are valued. So I hope I haven't messed up, Mpumi, wherever you are. Thank you.
Yeah. No, thanks. There's a question here, you know, comes from an educator who says they have a learner who doesn't like playing. You know, the educator tries all sorts of things to get the learner to play. He will play for a couple of minutes, and then he goes and he's on his own. How to deal with situations like that? And then the second question is, where, you know, you see a lot of parents, particularly these days, who resort to technology. You know, you have children who spend a lot of time on screen time, you know, on games, videos, and things like that. And just any comments around that, you know, how do we make sure that parents can still allow children to play as opposed to being hooked on devices? Because obviously, you know, we see a lot of that these days. So those two questions: how do you encourage a child who may be shy, who may not like to play? And secondly, just the impact of technology and screen time on the inability to play and learn through play. Anybody?
Can I answer that one on how do we encourage a student who cannot play?
Yes.
The problem with us is that we want students to do the same thing all of them at the same time. But in a project-based environment, if you looked at in the class, there are different activities, even if the goal is the same. So for students like that, you allow them to be comfortable with whatever they do. So like you've noticed there is somewhere where some of them were doing nails, some of them were doing hair, some were massaging and all of that. It is what they like. So we should not force them to play the way we played. And what I've noticed is that we have students or kids who are not playing enough. You know, simple skipping rope. Up to grade 3 or 4, very few students can do skipping rope because they are not the caliber of students who grew up playing outside. We used to play outside a lot. So we are trying to encourage as much with the parents' workshop. Please allow the students to jump. Please allow the students to fall. There's nothing wrong. Allow the students to play with a skipping rope. Allow the students to mess up. We used to play umgusha. I don't see umgusha anymore in our students. So those are things we are encouraging in the school, but it's not enough. When they are at home, they should continue having that kind of a situation. I've noticed every time when we pick up the little ones in the preschool, you'll find most of them will tell their parents, I don't want to go. I still want to play, because they are not given the opportunity to play at home. The only time where they play, it's at school. So we encourage the parents, hide away those gadgets. Let them play as much as you can. You gave an example earlier on that even in your dining room, there's nothing wrong. Let them jump. It's their home. It's fine. Thank you.
And just thoughts on technology, how parents can really try and encourage children to play as opposed to being hooked on phones, smartphones and tablets and so on. Anybody wants to jump in there?
Mr. Masane, if I can come in as well, just
Right.
to add on what Memlanga said. One thing that I think is a key, especially for parents at home, parents tends to give tablets or computers or whatever because they want to cook, they want to do other things. So what I encourage parents to do is to also create a schedule. Not a tight schedule, but create time where you're going to have time for your kids. Trust me, if you create the schedule and you say you only have 1 hour on your computing or whatever, then this time we are playing outside, there's like an hour to go and play outside. There's an hour to play inside. As soon as your child gets home, they'll say, Mommy, today we didn't play. Or Mommy, today you took away that hour for me to do this and this. Because the kids really love to play. But we as parents, because we want to always have an eye on them, we tend to give them the tablets because we know it's going to keep them in one place. So I do encourage parents to be open-minded, allow the kids, create a schedule. If you know your child loves the tablet, find games that they're going to be interested in. Again, going shopping with them in the game shop where they can pick what they like. They'll show more interest in that. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. No, those are the questions that we had today. A very, very exciting and a very stimulating talk and webinar today. And again, I'd like to just thank Mpumi, Saha, Chantal for your presentations. I'm sure all of us have learned quite a lot from this talk, especially given that it is International Day of Play today. So thank you again. And good evening to all. And thanks very much for attending, for spending this hour and a half with us. Hopefully you've learned as well as we did. Thank you again.